This is part that I haven't told the doctors.
About 9:30, I gave him a dose of 50 milligrams of insulin, non-diabetic. I believe he died the next day.
This was the moment investigators discovered that 50-year-old Elizabeth Wettlaufer, a seemingly harmless nurse, was actually the hidden culprit behind multiple fatalities. On August 11th, Jamie Silcox, a dementia patient, was found lifeless in his bed at the Care nursing facility. With the autopsy revealing nothing suspicious, his death was labeled as natural causes. However, in the years that followed, the same nursing home reported patient after patient dying under nearly identical conditions. For 8 years, the explanation remained an enigma to both law enforcement and medical professionals, until September 2016, when Elizabeth Wettlaufer came forward to disclose the chilling reality behind the unexplained deaths. Liz confessed at a mental health center, which immediately notified authorities. Just hours later, Liz was placed in an interrogation room.
So I just want to go through, like I said, a couple formalities, cover a few little things off. If you wish to speak to a lawyer at any time, we can make it happen whenever you like.
The interrogation begins with Liz being informed of her rights. She has the right to legal counsel and the right to stay silent. However, it seems unlikely she'll be making use of either of these rights as the investigator poses a few preliminary questions to become acquainted with her.
Back at Meadow Park, what was your addiction?
Hydromark.
And how much were you using? And
I was a binge user, so I would use what I could get a hold of by stealing it from the patient.
Liz was employed as a caregiver in a nursing facility and had full access to her patients' medications. For years, she had been taking a drug called hydromorphone, a powerful opioid comparable to morphine, and using it in secret to cope with stress. However, it appears that substance abuse wasn't the only psychological struggle she was facing.
so as far as your latest position at St. Elizabeth, that was your last position as a RN, is that correct?
It was.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said you resigned from there?
Yes.
Okay. What brought you to that?
That's where things get a little crazy.
Okay.
This is part that I haven't told the doctors.
When my ex and I broke up in 2007, I was already taking the medication for my borderline personality disorder. And I was so angry. And it was like a voice said inside me, I'll use you, don't worry about it.
Liz had battled borderline personality disorder for years and took prescribed medication in an attempt to manage it. This meant she hadn't allowed it to impact her significantly, at least not until 2007, when everything would shift in a terrifying manner. The investigator then chooses to intensify the pressure, and the session rapidly shifts from an interview to a full-blown admission.
So Mr. Silcox, it says here you were working a double shift from 3 till 7, right?
3 p.m. to 7 a.m.
In Woodstock?
Yes.
Okay. And tell me about your knowledge of James and your daily interactions during a shift with him.
I didn't see him every time. He wasn't always my patient. I just knew from what people had said that he would grab the nurse's breasts and buttocks, and he would say horribly inappropriate things about his wife, that now he was there, just would say different things. And he did touch me inappropriately once.
Jamie Silcox was an 84-year-old war veteran suffering from dementia, under the supervision of Liz and her colleagues. But one night, caregiving turned into chaos as Liz became consumed by anger and made a decision that would alter the trajectory of her life permanently.
About 9:30, I gave him a dose of 50 milligrams of insulin, non-diabetic, and gave him an insulin shot. Throughout the night, he was yelling out, I love you, and I'm sorry. It's not to me, but just you could hear him calling out in his room, and that's what he was calling out. And then at 3:30, the PSWs came to me and said that he was gone. The doctor came in and said that his cause of death was from an embolism due to his post-hip. He'd had hip surgery. The doctor ruled it embolism due to post-hip surgery.
Insulin overdoses happen when an individual takes more insulin than necessary, whether they're diabetic or not. Excess insulin significantly drops the body's blood sugar levels, which can lead to lightheadedness, unconsciousness, and ultimately, death. What's even more alarming is how challenging it can be to detect insulin as the cause of death, and even when it is discovered, it's extremely hard to prove that an insulin overdose was the initial trigger. This wasn't even her first attempt, either. Back in 2007, she gave 2 other excessive doses of insulin, but they didn't succeed in killing the patients. While this marked her first fatal success, it was far from her last.
Maurice, How did you pronounce Maurice's last name?
Grenat.
Is it Grenat? Okay.
He was another one who liked to grab breasts and asses.
Right.
He was sometimes a patient of mine. See, at that time, I didn't have a set floor that I worked on. I worked on all the different floors as a nurse, kind of filling in.
Okay.
So, one afternoon I was working with him and he did grab me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I got that feeling inside that this is his time to go. So I gave him an overdose of insulin after supper.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe he died the next day.
And what was his reaction to receiving the insulin?
Again, it was just kind of like, oh, okay. I said, the doctor wants you to have a vitamin shot. That's what I usually say.
Liz had now started to perfect her approach, telling the victim it was merely a vitamin injection and had even alluded to a possible motive.
And again, I got that feeling inside that this is his time to go.
Every time she considered taking someone's life, she experienced a powerful, overwhelming sensation in her stomach that suggested God desired that person's return and that their time on earth had come to an end.
And the different times that I have caused people's deaths or caused them discomfort through the insulin,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was the influence of that voice or whatever it was. It wasn't a voice in my head, it was a voice in here. So, but yeah, I just had a sense after my marriage broke up that God was going to use me for something. And then after a while, I started to really wonder after some of the murders, if it was God or if it was the devil fooling me.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel like you were doing the right thing for these people?
No. I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to do, but it wasn't what was right for them.
While individuals with BPD often display impulsive actions and disrupted thinking patterns, it's unusual for them to be impacted in the extreme way Liz was. Many people with BPD may encounter short or extended periods of unusual perceptions, such as hearing voices or feeling driven to harm themselves or others, but it's exceptionally rare for them to follow through. Her actions were likely more connected to the antisocial personality disorder she was later diagnosed with. Those living with ASPD are frequently noted for having a blatant disregard for rules and the emotions of others. They also tend to struggle with managing their anger and resist letting others obstruct their reckless conduct. Neither condition alone fully accounts for Liz's actions. It was likely the combination of both that planted the thought in her mind and then enabled her to carry it out with minimal hesitation.
So Gladys, so this takes us to November of 2011 at Crescent Care. It says here Gladys was a type 2 diabetic and had dementia. How old do you think Gladys was?
92.
92? Okay. Tell me a little bit about Gladys. What was she like when you cared for her?
Well, when I first started caring for her, she was walking and talking, and she had quite the spirit. She once punched a man because she overheard the nurses telling one of the gentlemen, "No, you can't push your wife around. You have to come with us." And she turned around and she said, "You can't treat a woman like that." Boom!
And hit the man.
And hit the man. So then we're all in a state of trying to keep them from fighting with each other and trying to keep them from hurting us.
Right.
Yeah, she was very spunky. But she went downhill fast.
Did she?
Eventually, she had dementia, didn't take her pills well, didn't eat well, very stubborn woman. And as always, one evening I just got that red surging feeling that she was going to be the one. And gave her insulin overdose.
Did you ever get that feeling outside of work?
No, never.
No? Did you ever get that feeling going to work, knowing that something was going to happen that shift?
No, it always happened at work.
So, if I were to use the phrase spur of the moment, would it be something that you just have that feeling come on? Or
yeah, I guess you
would
could
it
say
build up?
spur of the moment, but it usually start happening, focused on one patient, and then I would feel that red surging, which is what made me think it was God. Which I'm so embarrassed.
Like I said, I'm not here to judge you. Right?
I know.
Right?
I know.
One of the most bizarre aspects of Liz is how relaxed she remains throughout the entire confession. Not only is she eager to share every detail she can recall about the killings, but she also chuckles and recounts stories about the victims the whole time. Yet, she also confesses to feeling ashamed for believing the sensation was a message from God, indicating that she perceives herself as having a strong self-image to maintain, while simultaneously showing a complete absence of empathy for her victims. This mindset aligns with traits of a sociopath, although no psychological evaluations or assessments have ever confirmed this theory.
September or October to 07.
Yeah.
And then Helen was 2011.
Yeah. Helen, I don't remember a lot about. She was very quiet, very determined, just seemed to be waiting to die.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I had that feeling that, this is the one.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a bit of a fuss about her that night because she was very lucid.
Mm-hmm. And
we talked about how much she liked blueberry pie and ice cream.
Okay.
So on my break, I went to Walmart. I got a small blueberry pie and some ice cream and brought it to her, and she ate 3 or 4 bites.
Yes.
And then that night I overdosed her. Like I said, I had that feeling that it was her time to go. And
what do you mean by that? Do you think she was towards the end of her life at that point?
No, that she was the person to go to.
Okay. And that was in your mind, in your stomach? Where was that feeling?
In my chest area. And after I did it, I got that laughter.
When would you feel that laughter? Would you feel it right after you injected it, or once the person passed away?
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
In addition to the sensation in her stomach before each killing, Liz also describes feeling as though there's laughter coming from her chest. Since this occurs both while she's giving the dose and after learning the victim has died, the sensation is likely an intensified feeling of satisfaction from believing she has fulfilled her task. Psychopaths are considered to have a more extreme form of ASPD, and research has shown that they exhibit a heightened response to instant gratification. This is what drives psychopaths to make more spur-of-the-moment choices, as they place higher value on the reward than someone without the condition. It's possible this response simply appears in Liz in a more physical form than normal, resulting in the almost euphoric, laughing-like feeling.
Just out of curiosity, how much insulin would it take to kill someone that wasn't a diabetic? Or
I don't know.
You don't know that?
No.
You didn't know that as a nurse, that this amount? Or?
No, there is no set amount.
Okay. And I just simply just don't know that answer.
There is no set amount.
Okay. Different people would react differently to different amounts, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And would it obviously make a difference if they were diabetic or not a diabetic?
Yes.
You don't say a lot of negative things about Helen here. Did you get along with her okay? Did she ever do anything to harm you, or?
No, she was very quiet. It was just, I got that feeling that she's next to her time to go.
Liz had no issues with Helen and even went out of her way to bring her favorite meal before ending her life. This creates an unusual contrast, where she clearly experiences a sense of guilt both before and after the act, yet still proceeds without hesitation. Naturally, the most significant indication of remorse was her decision to confess in the first place, something that may be understandable for a neurotypical individual who has committed 1 or 2 offenses, but is almost unheard of among serial killers who have operated over several years. She expressed that she does comprehend the distinction between right and wrong and never claimed to enjoy the killings, stating she felt awful after each one and had even attempted to seek help on multiple occasions.
I can imagine it. Does it feel like a weight off your shoulders?
Yes.
You've been carrying a burden for quite some time.
And I've tried to get help.
Yeah, well, sometimes it takes a few attempts to finally commit to it, right?
Yeah, I had a pastor that I told me, he prayed over me and told me I'd be fine. And that was God's grace. And then...
When was that?
That was Halloween 2013.
And you kind of divulged to what had happened to you to that point in your life with
Yes.
involving these people?
Yes.
Okay. And where was that?
That was here in town.
Okay.
Liz then proceeded to admit to 8 total killings, along with attempted murder on 6 additional individuals, some occurring just days apart. She had succumbed to these impulses for a span of 8 years, fully aware that what she was doing was morally wrong and outright repulsive. It wasn't until 2016 that she finally approached a mental health and addiction facility to confess and draft the 4-page statement the investigator has been referencing.
Okay, we're gonna wrap things up, but here's what's gonna happen.
Okay.
Okay, and part of this is gonna be up to you. What are your plans going forward from here?
Going forward from here, I want to go home.
Okay.
I want to have a good night's sleep.
Okay.
I want to spend Thanksgiving weekend with my family.
Okay.
and I want to be available to the police that intend to meet me. And if I have to come back for trial, I have to come back for trial.
Sadly, a Thanksgiving celebration with her family was nowhere in sight. Instead, she was officially charged with 8 counts of murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. In 2017, she relinquished her right to a preliminary trial and admitted guilt to all accusations in court. On June 26, 2016, Elizabeth Wettlaufer was handed 8 consecutive life sentences, ensuring that the only peaceful night's rest she'll ever have again will be spent behind prison walls.